It's actually a feature of all of the precious metals markets at the moment. Investment drivers, low interest rate environment, macroeconomic uncertainty, fears of inflation, all of these factors are playing into a reasonably positive commodity play. It's particularly pertinent to gold. And if gold goes higher, as we think it will, platinum will go higher, as will palladium.
Bearing this in mind, is $1,900 an ounce conservative, optimistic or realistic view?
Well, it's a base case scenario for GFMS, but as you heard me say on gold before, it's possible that you have a blowout on the upside for gold if the monetary authorities in the United States really show zero willingness to address the imbalances that exist and continue with ultra low interest rates, go through QE3. Could we see gold going to $1,800, $1,900? Of course we could. I mean, it's a possibility. And under that scenario, you could see platinum going above $2,000 again. But as a base case, looking at the supply and demand fundamentals, looking at what we think the investment drivers will be and the order of magnitude of investment flows, that's what we're thinking is kind of realistic.
You say that there's a gross surplus of platinum in the industry. What effect will this have?
Well, the gross surplus is a reflection of obviously difficult economic times. 2008, 2009, we have seen a sharp contraction in industrial activity, global growth, and that all feeds through into platinum demand. Automobiles, glass, industrial uses, and of course jewelry. So those are that's the backdrop that's given rise to some of the surplus dynamic. The other reason, of course, is we've seen a very substantial recovery in auto catalyst recycling. You've seen jewelry scrap come back, and of course South Africa has been producing the goods, somewhat surprisingly some may say, but South African producers have been able to step up to the plate and produce more platinum, and that's given rise to the surplus. Of course, what has been sustaining that surplus and sustaining prices at what are very elevated levels. I mean, let's not lose sight of the fact platinum's average price is a record. It's doing very, very well as a metal, and the reason it's doing very well is because people are willing to fund those surpluses for the reasons I've outlined earlier, low interest rates, opportunity costs. But there's also another very important element when it comes to platinum in particular, is there is a South African risk element to this, and investors are willing to put money into platinum because they do worry about the sustainability of South Africa. There are downside risks to actual production volumes. You've got safety issues, you've got Eskom, political risk, a whole raft of other things, and South African producers are struggling to contain costs. So there is a feeling there that these surpluses, whilst they've been relatively persistent, we've seen them for the last 4 or 5 years, that they will eventually start to dissipate.
Does this mean then that within the coming years we're going to see more of a parity between the supply and demand?
Well, I think what you're more likely to see here is, the South Africans are on record as saying they want to increase production. And talking to my supply side guys, it certainly looks like in 2011 we'll see higher mine production. The key issue in terms of these surpluses is what happens on the demand side. And there is a bit of an uphill battle for platinum, but there are some bright things on the immediate time horizon. You've got heavy-duty diesel coming on strongly. The environmental legislation is pushing very heavily for heavy-duty diesel, and that's a very platinum intensive story. You also got off-road applications, so there is a demand side story, but we think that these surpluses will persist for a couple of years yet.
And then finally, you say that you expect mine production to be up again this year. Does that include sort of the rumors from Zimbabwe that Mugabe is looking to get rid of those companies in Zimbabwe which are not then going to be compliant to indigenization issues?
Well, no, this is very much a South African story. I mean, obviously the global growth story is partly contingent on what you think is going to happen in Zimbabwe, and there is some uncertainty there. But just looking at what's happening here in South Africa, the east and the western limb, the traditional producing areas of platinum, it looks to us like there will be a rising production profile, certainly this year and at these prices. Of course, the $64,000 question here is what happens to the rand? There are relentless cost pressures on the South African producers. The all-in cost of production is very, very high. You've got a lot of marginal producers. Does the rand ride to the rescue? Because it doesn't seem likely to us that the dollar price is going to move sufficiently high and sufficiently quickly to really substantially increase the margins of the producers.